I dreamed the same dream. Things just got out of hand.
It's no secret that Doctor Strange has been kept relatively grounded during his involvement in the main MCU timeline. I mean, it's kind of hard to have a master of the mystic arts extend his powers beyond the level of what our current heroes could interact with. This presents a unique problem where the implementation of Strange becomes more about the broad scope of the universe and less about the common plausibility of his powers in the established lore. But writers like the Russo brothers and John Watts have done a really great job at keeping Strange as a protective guardian to the younger cast members and letting his powers work in the moment to give fans a taste of his larger impact. But with the Multiverse of Madness on the horizon and a string of newly established continuities thanks to Loki and No Way Home, I think the door is now open enough to allow for Strange to begin evolving into a simpler role within the MCU, and not so much into a complex character study, especially with Phase 4 being the most ambitious phase yet. After No Way Home, I think it's safe to assume we crossed the event horizon for the MCU's main continuity and are now faced with tackling the massive responsibility of multiversal events, which is a really great space to work in. We've spent so many years building up the universe in a way that felt both realistic and worthy of suspending our disbelief, and now we can reward that effort by leaning more into the unnatural elements within these stories. With Sam Raimi leading the project and a big emphasis on horror and a more mature version of Strange being represented, I think this is the absolute right direction to be taking a really important character. Could Multiverse of Madness be setting up an incursion event or playing into a future Secret Wars project? Yeah, it's entirely possible, and we know that with the Illuminati all but confirmed for the upcoming movie, it opens the doors into really significant groups such as the Mutants, the Fantastic Four, and potentially even beginning the World War Hulk groundwork that fans have been begging for literal years. With all of that to think about, Marvel obviously introduced Kang for a reason at the end of Loki and is still intent upon him being the bigger threat during Phase 4, which means the next couple of films for the studio might be focusing on where Kang's role will be and how quickly the audience can get caught up to speed. So where does this get us with Doctor Strange and his role in the universe? Well, with cracks becoming more prominent in the main MCU timeline, I believe it's almost necessary that Strange evolves as a sorcerer, more so than his sequel being a critically acclaimed success from both critics and audiences alike. Strange may not be one of the OG 6 Avengers, but he's been around for almost all of the most important storylines in the universe up until now, and with that connective tissue already in place, it would be a really great evolution of the character to take him out of his earthbound environment. A lot of magic in the MCU has also been kept close to the chest, and rightfully so. It's a difficult avenue to explore, and the rules of how the Sorcerer Supreme operates required a bit of dilution in jargon. Otherwise, you basically run the risk of confusing fans and losing the mystical realism established in the first Doctor Strange. This worked for a while, and it allowed Strange to operate in a pocket of sorcerer-like possibilities without ever truly tapping into his extremely complicated potential. But now that the multiverse is the existential threat that it is, the simplistic approach that used to alleviate some responsibility in explaining the magic doesn't really carry the same weight anymore, and it might be time to step away from the realism that's gotten us this far so we can then lean into more of the unexplainable. I think it might be time to take Strange away from being that friendly neighborhood magician we've seen so far and really apply his character and his powers to a more purified atmosphere within the mystic arts. Whether this means he operates in multidimensional space, on different planes altogether, or we finally get to jump down the rabbit hole and begin understanding the true tactile interactions he has with his spells and their physical constructs, evolving Strange into a true master sorcerer who's capable of nearly infinite manipulations is a necessary upgrade for the character, and one that needs to happen for his powers to match the stakes of the new sandbox that the multiverse is operating in. In the comics, Strange has always been a bit of a wild card, and because the past few events on Earth have required some, if not all, of his guidance, it can be easy to forget his relationship with larger threats still looming in the MCU like Dormammu, Kang, maybe alternate timeline Thanos, maybe Caecilius is still out there somewhere, potentially even the Celestials themselves, and of course, now the Illuminati. It's not that Strange isn't a serious character, but more so that power levels in the MCU have always been a somewhat casual talking point. When characters occupy the same physical space as one another, they naturally have their power creep scaled down realistically so that a human super soldier feels as capable in the moment as a Norse god. To the credit of the entire MCU, the different abilities of these heroes have always been depicted incredibly well, but it's no secret that the power in which they normally operate never truly translates as skewed as it probably should be, with two of the biggest victims of this being Hulk and Doctor Strange. The Strange we saw making a pocket-dimensional infinity against Dormammu, checking alternate realities for Thanos, and manipulating the fabric of the universe in No Way Home was just the tip of the iceberg for what he can really do, and it's the closest interpretation to his comic book form we've had so far. We've gotten a very small glance at the true power of someone like Strange, and it's definitely worked naturally with the setup of the first three phases, but with the Illuminati now entering the conversation, the physical magic Strange relies on for his time on Earth might need to be put on a back burner in order to advance his abilities to a more mystical potential as a sorcerer, especially with Wanda last seen studying the Darkhold. This improvement can be accomplished pretty easily by pitting Strange against a new environment, such as the Illuminati or the Multiverse, that demands a new level of technical mastery in the mystic arts, something he's likely spent years working on between major films. The evolution would be great to see visually, almost like forcing a physical change in his approach, rather than just writing him out of doing the dirty work itself. The Illuminati presents a really unique opportunity for Strange, since the consequences of his magic are now no longer against characters who can't comprehend the means or ends of the impact, similarly to how Loki interacted with the TVA and learned how to operate in their system. We're moving into a realm of cosmic consequences and cosmic importance at this stage in the MCU, and it's almost necessary that Strange can hold his own, as he seems to be the younger one now under the guise of an older and much wiser group of powerful multiversal individuals. If we don't get to see Strange learning new magic or exploring different ways that magic is used at this newest level outside of Earth 199999's reality, nothing really will be lost in the experience, but I do think it's important to graduate Strange from being simply a sorcerer on Earth who's had a few cosmic conundrums to a capable master of the mystic arts who is able to hold his own in the multiverse. This is a really big movie, not just because of the potential ripple effects it will have on the cinematic universe, but because it's going to require a lot from Strange as both a character who's dealing with the ramifications of his actions, but also whether or not he can potentially hold his own against the Illuminati. Strange has always been a bit of a background ex machina in the MCU, and that's really never been a bad thing, but we're about to explore the vast insanity that is the multiverse, and it's going to demand a competent sorcerer supreme who can operate between realities and one worthy of the right to potentially join the ranks of the Illuminati. I think Sam Raimi will deliver on exactly what Strange needs to evolve, and hopefully it begins a more magical side of the MCU that everyone can get lost in. No pun intended. And as always, thanks for watching.